Overtired. So tired. Overtired.
Hello again. You're listening to Overtired. I'm Christina Warren. I'm joined, as always, by Brett Terpstra. This week, we are without our third, Jeff Stubborn-Scunzel, who is having fun with jet skis. But Brett and
Yeah,
I are back doing an old school Overtired. How are you, Brett?
I don't know, man. Like he's like, I got a family thing, and then he sends us pictures of him on a jet ski, and I'm
Yeah,
like, where are your priorities, man? What about Overtired? Come on.
exactly. It's like we are definitely more fun than,
Then a
uh,
jet ski? I
yeah,
find
fuck
that
that,
hard to
man.
believe. I've
Yeah.
never been on a jet ski, but
Oh, they're great.
I
They're
just
great.
see them as like an expression of pure joy on water.
Yeah, I went in Dubai of all places actually, in a man-made lake, and that we'd called in advance, like, before we got there, we were like, "Can I wear, like, a two-piece bathing suit?" Right? 'Cause I was concerned about
Right,
that.
right.
And yes, and they were like, "She can wear whatever she wants," and I was like, "Okay, well, I'll still keep it, like, conservative, like, more conservative than, like, my normal bathing suit would be," even though I had, like, a life vest on or whatever. And then we get there, and they only had 4 jet skis, and there were 5 of us. And, one of my colleagues was like one of my best friends, actually, he was like, "No, she gets her own." So they had to go back and, like, get one for me, but they just assumed that I was gonna ride like a bitch on someone's, a jet ski, and I was like, "No, I would like to do this," and I did pretty good. One of our colleagues, like, he'd never been on one before, and he had the time of his life. I think he wound up buying one himself after it. But yeah, no, it was really fun. So Jeff's photos, the video rather decent to us, like, um, pure joy. And, so we missed you, Jeff, but also completely understand.
Before Daniel Tosh got really annoying and awful, he had a special where he talked about how no one can frown on a jet ski. Like, you would always smile on a jet ski. It went into, like, some dark version of a kid's funeral, but back then it was funny. Back then, like, Daniel Tosh was, like, hitting, like,
No,
dark
totally.
spots, but still, like, I was cracking up. His
No, I mean,
bit his bit about the midgets in the parade, that killed me. I was dying.
no, we
And
can't say that
then
word anymore.
I know, the little people in the parade, um, but I believe the word he used.
Right. No, I'm just fucking with you. I don't, I mean, like, yeah. But no, I mean that God damn it, Tosh, that's a name I haven't thought about in forever. Tosh 2.0, like that was like a big show. That was,
It
you
was
know,
it started off pretty good too.
it
I
did, it
enjoyed it for
did.
a
I mean,
while.
I did too, because it was this weird thing where you're like, okay, we can bring the internet to TV. And then
Yeah.
it just kind of turns out like we don't really need to bring the internet to TV.
Well, and now what's her name? The bipolar comedian. Um, I forget her name, and I forget the name of the show, but she does a show that's basically all, like, memes,
It was
and
like
there's
after
3.
midnight, it just got
Yeah,
canceled.
yeah, it's after midnight, but it's at after, like, with the at symbol. They,
Yeah,
like, rebranded it. You're right.
right.
It is the new F at midnight, after midnight.
Yeah, at midnight, after
Um,
midnight, whatever. Yeah, it just I think it just got canceled because I saw it, like, once or twice. It was not a thing I was ever gonna seek out, to be honest with you. I mean, I like parts of it, but, like, I don't watch terrestrial TV most of the time, and certainly not, like, late night stuff. I might watch clips. I caught it a couple times.
yeah,
Um,
it's one of those shows where it's mostly inside jokes between comedians.
yeah.
So if you're really into the comedy scene and you wanna see, like, how comedians relate to each other, it's a good, like, just kind of
Yeah,
obviously, they pre-write their bits, like, even on the
right.
original At Midnight, they
Yes.
all they all got the questions in advance and they pre-wrote their bits,
Of
but
course, of
you got
course.
a you got a kind of a glimpse into, a rapid fire comedy writing session, if you will.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, and I the reason I think it was just because I saw something on Instagram or whatever, she's like, "Oh, this is my final thing," or whatever, so I'm assuming it was canceled, which frankly makes sense. Because again, like, it's one of those things, like, that would have worked, like, and I would have watched it, like, in the early 2000s,
Mhm.
like, if it was on TV or if they did, like, it on, like, Comedy Central, which I think it originally, Tosh 2.0 was on, like, that would have been a thing that I would have been, like, up at 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever, or at midnight, and I would have had on in the background, right? And I would have been like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is really funny, and I'm really into this," but, like, the way that we watch TV like that now just doesn't exist in that. in that sphere. Like
Yeah.
like um we were talking about this right before we started the show. Like you claim you've run out of good movies to watch. You obviously haven't because you have not watched all the good movies, I promise you. But we have like it's almost this weird thing like this we've talked about this before, but like, the paradox of choice where you have so much that we have access to that there aren't like these pre-curated pockets where you can just turn something on and like just have that be kind of your stuff for the day or for the week or like for whatever, time frame you're in. Like when I was, in high school and college, it would be like Adult Swim would be like the thing that I would
Hmm.
always have on, like from 10 p.m. Well, it started at 11, I think, and then it moved, earlier as time went on. But like that was always a thing. It was like, okay, I know that this block from like this time to this time is going to be stuff that I watch. And I would, have like certain shows that I would always like watch on like MTV or like, again, like Comedy Central or whatever. Like you just knew you could just have MTV on like in the background all day long and do whatever you need to do, or if you just wanted to veg in front of the TV, you could do that. And, like, they have those, fast channels now that'll just play marathons of shows, but it's not programming blocks in the same way. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and then those are annoying to me because the ad breaks, I don't even mind the ads so much, it's just I don't like the way they insert them. Like, if they inserted them at the normal break points in those shows, then, like, I wouldn't be mad, but it'll happen, like, mid-sentence, and then, like, it'll cut into an ad, and then it'll, like, go back again. I'm like, "Okay, no, 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 like, fuck you. If
Yeah.
you're too incompetent to do ad stuff, then all you reminded me of is the fact that I probably own this show on demand, or I can find this on demand,
Yeah.
or I can find, like, a non-ad copy to watch." And, like, now I'm just thinking about that, and so I'm completely, like, tuned out of watching the Reno 911, channel or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yep. I I'm planning to do some video work for a local store, the one Elle works at actually,
Nice.
and the person coordinating the video told me they were thinking of a pop-up video
Yeah,
aesthetic for it, and they're like,
nice.
"Did you ever watch VH1?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, we're of the same age."
Yeah, 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 you yeah, well, see, this is what's so fucking scary, is that I don't even know, like, how many, people, like, below 30 know VH1,
Sure.
which
Does
is
it exist anymore? I
I
don't
mean,
even know.
I don't even think it does. I mean, if it does, it certainly I mean, it had stopped,
They just
other th
started playing, like, nonstop video. It was like a radio station after a while.
yeah,
MTV turned into reality shows, and VH1 just turned into, like, an auto DJ'd.
yeah, yeah, MTV is just, like they just play, like, one of those yeah, just some one of those game shows they just, like, play, like, over and over again, like, that's all it is. And I think that it might have, turned into yeah, I guess it still technically exists, but they, yeah, because 'cause I'm looking this up now, um, but yeah, like, all the MTV channels basically, like, it's just, like, ridiculousness now, I think is with the show that, like, MTV plays, like, 24/7. Um, and then they have, like, MTV Hits and MTV2 and whatnot, but, like, those are just, kind of like we'll also go through cycles of things, but, like because VH1 went through that weird block where, well, I mean, Drag Race, that was there, and then it moved someplace else. Drag Race started on Logo and then moved to VH1 because it did really well. And like, Love and Hip Hop was VH1, but, like, in the 2000s, there was pop-up video, and there was Behind the Music, and then there were, like, all the I love the '80s, I love the '90s, I love the whatever, like, all the nostalgia shows, if you remember those,
Yep,
like, where they would
absolutely.
basically just, like, get the comedians like, they basically, like, kind of, like, figured out how to do cheap YouTube content before YouTube, where they would just get a bunch of people in a room for a day
Mhm.
and then just have them riff and then turn, like, 15 specials out of it, you
Yep,
know?
yep.
Although that had to have been I mean, I'm sure they were paid nothing for it, but, like, I bet that that was really good for people like Michael Ian Black and folks like
Yeah,
that because
right.
you would get to know them because they would play those things all the time.
Yeah,
So you knew those things, you knew those jokes, and then, like, oh, you see these comedians, you're like, "Oh, okay. I remember them from, from that show," you know?
I do.
I might watch that. I might watch their comedy special. So
Yep. All right. Should we do a mental health corner?
we should. We should. You want to go first?
Sure. I am still unemployed and I have not been this happy in a long time. I am coding every day and like really I'm super excited about the software I have coming out and it makes me happy. It's fulfilling, but it's also at the same time not draining. So like evening will roll around and Elle will be like, "Hey, there's a burlesque show tonight," or "Hey, a friend of ours band is playing downtown." And I'll be like, "Yeah, let's go." And like historically, by evening, I'm shot. I don't seek out activities. And now I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Let's socialize. Let's spend our energy on other people. And it's been really good. Here during Pride Month, we've been to a couple of uh big Pride events at No Name Bar, which has become it's Winona's only gay bar, and it's not a gay bar. It is just a very, like, queer-friendly bar that regularly holds, like, queer dances and queer burlesque shows, and, it's been really fun. Like, I love that community. I love, um, feeling a part of even though I'm 46, I can show up and all the kids are, like, happy to see me, and everyone's just having a good time, and I don't feel old. I do because I go home at like 10 and I know that they're all there to shut the bar down. But but it's been actually like this whole being unemployed and working on my own stuff has been super fulfilling and I want to make it work. That said, I am trying to get unemployment right now and Oracle missed their deadline for responding to my unemployment claim,
Mhm.
and I'm prepared for disappointment on that front. I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know if they're gonna block me from getting unemployment.
Well, what do you mean they missed their deadline? Like, they missed their deadline to,
So, Minnesota's unemployment insurance website says that they sent a request to Oracle for confirmation on such and such a date, and they had a due date. It just says due date, and I don't know if this is legally binding or what, but it said due
right.
date was the 20th, and today's the 22nd, and I haven't heard anything yet. So they missed the deadline that Minnesota's unemployment insurance sent them.
Okay, so what I'm trying to understand though, by them missing the deadline, like, does that mean that that is their deadline to, like, confirm or deny or what? Because if they don't respond, I mean, it seems weird that the default response would be that you just wouldn't get unemployment,
That
right?
does seem weird, yes.
It would seem to me like they would basically need to respond if they were to be like, "No, we're going to, um, like, make some sort of claim about why this shouldn't be paid out."
Yeah, I should call somebody.
Yeah, you should do that on
Um,
Monday.
yeah, as part of the unemployment application process, you have to sign up to take like um it's like a meeting with a counselor that
Mhm.
teaches you how to get a job.
Yep.
And I know how to get a job.
Yeah, and they
I am
make you, like, do,
familiar with this.
weekly, biweekly calls with them or whatever, but I mean,
No, that won't be a thing. I just have to fill out it's mostly online
oh,
now.
that's how it is in Washington, like, they would make you,
Um, yeah, you have to check in, but it's not you don't have to make calls every week.
okay.
At least that's my understanding thus far. You do have to continually show evidence that you are actively applying for work, which I can do. I am
Mhm.
I am applying. I'm just not excited about getting a job, and I haven't found anything since Shopify that actually seemed like a good fit that I would actually enjoy doing. We'll see. Anyway, yeah. Right now, my mental health good. I had to cancel recording yesterday because we're in the middle of severe heat advisory here in Minnesota. Heat index is around 115, and our power went out
Oh my
for 8
gosh.
hours. And I we were without air conditioning, without fans, without lights. And it started at like 4 well, like 5 in the evening, which is 4 p.m. is like the hottest part of the day right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the house had the AC running all day up until that point. So it wasn't unbearable in the house, but power went out because a tree went down on our road and knocked down a power line because it's all above ground power lines. And that meant we couldn't get out of the neighborhood we had to drive around through this like 10-mile back road, gravel road way to get back into town. So we ended up like making sure the animals had plenty of water and going to uh like a neighborhood ice cream social in one of the West End neighborhoods. And a fun band was playing covers in the garage, doing a bunch of like just really slow summertime, like classic rock stuff that just like it felt really good. And then ice cream, kids running everywhere, a
Nice.
bunch of adults from all over town that like a lot of people I knew were there. And it was a pretty magical evening. And then we got home expecting that, 3 hours later they would have restored the power,
Right.
but
Nope.
they hadn't. And so we went to bed. We stayed up for a while watching TV on an iPad plugged into power, like a portable power supply,
Right.
using my phone to tether to because Wi-Fi was out too.
Of course.
Like the internet service was down, even if my router had been working. But anyway, we watched TV till like midnight. I went to bed and I ended up trying to sleep in the basement because I don't do well with hot.
Yeah. No.
I
I
would
would.
much rather be cold than hot.
No. I would have absolutely gone to a hotel. Like that would have been like I'm not even
If
joking.
it hadn't been for the animals, I would have found another solution, but I didn't feel like packing up the animals, and I
Right.
also didn't wanna leave them alone with, like, uncertain circumstances. So I slept in the basement, and then at 1 a.m., the power came back on, which means that all of my Hue bulbs went full
Yep.
on, and the stove, which I had been cooking pasta on when the power went out, the stove was still on, and I didn't
Oh
realize
no.
it at first. So the stove is like on 10, heating up, and the house is all lit up, and I'm stumbling around at 1 in the morning, trying to shut off all the lights, realizing the stove is on, trying to get the AC set up to cool the house back down. And yeah. So the next day when we were supposed to record, I was pretty wrecked from a trying night in the heat. But yeah, so anyway, that's me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad that it came back. And yeah, I totally understand, yeah, with the animals, that would complicate things for sure. When we have heat waves here in Seattle, because we don't have central air, even though our rent is insane, and even though this is a building that should have had it built into it. The building was built in 2016.
Oh,
It was
geez.
it wasn't mandated then, but it should have been. Like, I think it was only mandated in like 2019 or 2020. So it was a fairly new period of time where like now they have to actually build AC into the buildings, but they didn't until then because the city fucking sucks and the state fucking sucks. And everybody's like, "Oh, it's fine. It only gets hot here a couple days out of the year." Da, da, da. I'm like, "Go fuck yourself." Like people, like elderly people, like I've complained about this on the pod before. Like it becomes like a real health hazard. And so yeah, I get a hotel room, and it's been like every other year that I've had to do it. And so we're coming up on like a summer where it'll probably have to be one of those things where I have to, get a hotel room for a couple of days.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not gonna get any better, I'll tell you that.
no, it's certainly not, and, like, but no, I mean, I'm glad that you at least had, like, a fun thing to do, like, for the evening, that there was, like, the block party and, all that stuff, so that was nice. and the AC had been running all day, so, like, the house didn't become like a oven immediately.
Yeah.
And, obviously, like, it happened at the peak time, but by the time, like, it really would kind of sink in, it's like, "Okay, well, the sun is set, so,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be as
Right.
bad."
Right.
But how annoying to then, like, be woken up at, like, 1 AM with all the lights coming on, and then you're like, "Oh, shit, there's food," like, the stove was on. Um, but yeah, um,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you figured that out and didn't, like weren't, like, asleep and then waking up to I mean, I guess the smoke
I'm
alarm would have gone off, but
I'm glad I have invested so heavily in backup solutions.
Mhm.
Like I have a portable power supply that will last about 16 hours, with like a phone, an iPad, and even a laptop plugged into it.
Oh,
Little
yeah,
less with a laptop plugged in.
is this one of those, like, those giant, like, anchor things
Yep,
that
yep,
yeah, yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah.
light built
With
into it and
the light built
everything.
into it, it has, like, the plugs that you can just go into,
Yep,
it's like they're like however many thousands of milliamperes or whatever, yeah.
yeah. And then I have a bunch of battery packs, and all of my electronics are on uninterruptible power supplies. So my Synology shuts itself down as soon as the power goes out. It does like a nice graceful shutdown. And yeah, I am prepared for power outages. And we have a bunch of like LED lanterns around the house. So no matter what room you're in, you can light it up. And we survive. I don't like it, but we survive.
Yeah. No, I mean, which is, like, good, like, if you gotta, again, like, if you've gotta deal with that stuff, at least you have options. Um but nobody wants that. But anyway, I'm glad you have power back. I'm glad that you have AC back, and sorry for the heat wave. But also that makes complete sense why like Jeff like wanted to do the family thing, and the family thing happens to include going to the
On a
lake and
lake.
getting then
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean that would be a great way to miss the heat. So um, I don't have any qualms against that at all. Um,
Yo, how's your mental health?
Pretty good, pretty good. I don't really have anything massively to update on. Just kinda same old, same old. So, um
We're all we seem to be in like a stasis of sorts. Like all three of us are kind of going through some kind of period of stability where there are little things like, but they're normal things that normal people all deal with. None of
Mhm.
us have we're not like bipolar manic. We're not like
Yeah, I was gonna
in deep
say
depressions where
yeah, no, I was gonna say I was gonna, like, ask you about this, like, have you since you've left, and this wouldn't be correlation of anything to be clear, I'm just mostly curious, but, like, has since you've left your job, have you had any manic incidents?
no, no, ever since I switched from Focalin to Vyvanse, I've had far fewer manic episodes, and I'm still dealing with insomnia to some extent, although that's getting better as well. But the insomnia clearly wasn't manic behavior. Like we tested it. When we upped my trazodone, one of the side effects of trazodone is if you're already manic, it'll make you more manic. So it was a good way to test and see if my insomnia was some kind of extended manic episode, and the trazodone did not make me any more manic. It actually worked. So yeah, I it's not mania. I haven't had a bipolar swing for I've lost track, but almost a year, I think.
Nice. Nice. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you've, like, found, like, the right, like it seems like the right medicine, thing, so that's really
Yeah,
good.
I don't Vyvanse isn't the perfect ADHD drug. There are other drugs I've been on and some that I haven't tried that are all more like effective for ADHD, but finding the balance when you're also bipolar, that takes some digging. And I do think that Vyvanse is the right solution.
That's good. That's really good.
It's especially for I'm ADHD inattentive and not hyperactive, and Vyvanse is far more, even though it's the same class as Adderall,
Hmm.
it's not. It's better for inattentive than Adderall is.
Yeah,
So
I'm also inattentive, and I take dexedrine, which is like Vyvanse, but I guess it's the more pure form or whatever. Um, like, I think that molecularly, I think they're very, very similar, but Vyvanse, I think, they did something to try to make it so it's harder to snort or whatever,
yeah,
is I
yeah.
think, like, the primary thing. And also and to be honest, I think that most of the rationale that went into a lot of these drugs was that the patents, expired on, like, the original class of
Hmm.
amphetamines, and they're like, "Oh, no, we have to continue to make money, so
Yeah, yeah.
let's tweak these things just a little bit." And so, but I just happened to go on that would just happened to be the one that I was prescribed when I was 15. And so, all these years later, that's the one that I still take. But I've been on Vyvanse a few times, and it's fine. It doesn't work as well for me
Yeah.
as the
Yeah.
other stuff, but
Yeah,
it's
for
fine.
sure. It doesn't work as well as almost anything else. It's kind of only a step better than your doctor telling you you have to take Wellbutrin for your ADHD, which is, I guess it worked for some people. They prescribe Prozac for ADHD and people that are stimulant averse, which it just you're just asking for so many problems that way. But
Yeah, I mean, I guess the rationale there, and I wouldn't know because obviously I'm not a clinician. But I would think that might be like if people are like, okay, if you don't know why people are being inattentive, if you don't know what the cause is, then maybe it could be a depressive thing because that does make sense. Because
mhm,
certainly, like I know that when my depression is worse, like my ADHD is typically worse too, right? Like
mhm,
because you care less, and so
yep,
it's one of those things. And so I could understand, especially since now, especially, it's harder sometimes to get people stimulant prescriptions. Be like, okay, we'll try this other thing first and see if this
yeah,
does something. And Wellbutrin, Prozac too, but Wellbutrin especially is like fast acting, and most people notice a difference like pretty quickly. Um, I was on it. It was. I remember. I mean, it was. God, this was 28 years ago now, but I was on it when I was really young, and um, I had like a really good response to it at first, and then it stopped working. And this became like a frustration with my psychiatrist at the time because uh, uh, as I got angry when she, like, wouldn't listen to me, I supposed that she was getting, paid by the drug company, which very much upset her. Turns out I was right, actually, so fuck you. Um, because I was like, "This was working, but it's not working anymore." Like, I went from being everything was great, I was feeling great, I was able to and it was helping attentiveness to some extent, right? I was like everything was like I was, like, back to my normal self, and then it just stopped, and then that was, like, almost, like, worse. Like, that was almost, like, the worst thing in the world where it's like you have this thing and it's great, and then it just stops working, and you don't know why. And, I'm was going through puberty at the time, and so that was I'm sure didn't help with any of, the trying to figure out the medication stuff, but yeah, that wound up launching me into, like, the worst depression that I've one of the worst depressions that I've ever been in, uh, but yeah, so that's, like, my only weird, like, Wellbutrin memory was that, like, it worked really well, and then it stopped working, and obviously everybody is different. I would never tell anybody not to try anything, but that's the only thing I can conceive of why people might, go their Prozac first, be like,
yeah,
"Okay, maybe this is maybe the anxiety or whatever is a symptom of depression, and
yeah.
that's what we'll
They
do."
tried Wellbutrin on me. It did not go well, and I cannot remember why. I just remember about 2 weeks later, I was like, "You gotta get me off this.
Yeah,
This isn't good." "Oh,
yeah.
no, you have a siren."
I do have sirens, sorry about that. I can't do anything
"That's
about that.
okay. You
Um,
really can't."
nope, sure can't. Alright. Well, before we get into, I guess, kind of, talking about, the movies that you've watched and not watched, and then we'll get into, like, an old school gratitude, I wanna tell you about today's sponsor, which is Insta360. Today's episode is sponsored by Insta360, a leader in 360-degree action camera technology. Their latest 360-degree camera, the Insta360 X5, launched on April 22nd, and it shoots full 360-degree videos, an incredible 8K 30 frames per second resolution. Since it films in all directions at once, you don't even need to bother with aiming the camera. You just hit record, you live in the moment, and you choose any angle you want in the edit with the Insta360 mobile app. It's smooth, it's easy to use, and it's packed with AI tools for faster workflow. You can even get those impossible drone-like third-person shots using the invisible selfie stick that disappears from the final video. Side note, this is actually pretty cool. If you use one of their selfie sticks, it's kind of built into how their software works where it can recognize it and it'll automatically remove it from your video, which is really cool. From immersive POVs to unique third-person shots, X5 is every camera you'll need in one. An efficient triple AI chip means seriously smooth performance, plus huge sensors and a dedicated low-light shooting mode deliver unmatched detail and quality, day and night. The X5 also features Insta360's toughest-ever lenses, which are completely replaceable, so you can risk the shot with confidence. To bag a free 114cm invisible selfie stick worth $24.99 with your Insta360 X5 standard package purchase, head over to store.insta360.com and use the promo code OVERTIRED, available for the first 30 standard package purchases only. For more information, be sure to check out our links in our show notes. Once again, that is going to be store.insta360.com. Use the promo code OVERTIRED. Thank you so much, Insta360. I know that Jeff wishes he probably had one of those when he was on the
Oh, that
jet
would have been
skis.
so cool, huh?
Honestly, like
It's like just bouncing up and
just
down
bouncing up
with
and
a
down, and it would
with an
capture.
invisible selfie stick in your
Absolutely, it
hand.
would just look like he had a drone with him. No, but honestly, action cams are really, really fun for the summer, or if you're going traveling anywhere, like they're really fun. So
I would love to have fun this summer. I think I'm relegated to going to block parties and hanging out at queer bars.
well, I mean, I think that's fun though, right? Like, I
It
mean,
is. It is. No shade on any of that. It is really enjoyable for me. I do wish I could afford to travel right now. Our last trip to Asheville was so much fun
yeah.
and was like, it was a lot of driving, but yeah, like I would like to do that again, but this summer that is not in the cards.
No, but I think that this summer is like you're getting a break, you're getting to kind of reassess to figure out like what kind of stuff you want to work on, what you want to do. Like obviously like the timing wasn't ideal. It never is, but like you hadn't been happy at your job anyway. Like this
Yeah.
is a nice forced reset. Like the fact that you
Yeah.
said that you're happiest you've been, right? Like you can figure out like a vacation once you either decide on if you're gonna be going more all in on the indie stuff and if that starts, paying off, or if you're going to be, if you find another, um, you know, either corporate job or, maybe like startup job that is more your speed. So that's how I would
Yeah.
think about it. Be like, all right, the vacation will come like, it might be a little after summer. It'll be belated. It'll be summer somewhere.
It's after whatever's up next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as part of my current liberty and freedom, I spend pretty much all my free time watching movies. I code, according to timing.app, I code about 50 hours a week. And like that is way more effort than I ever put into any day job.
Mm-hmm.
Like not just at Oracle. Like in general, with a day job, I'll work 4 to 6 hours a day. I like actually working, and the rest of it is walking the dog or responding to emails, doing all the stuff that you do as part of work. But when you're just coding, when you don't have to communicate with anybody and you're just writing code, yeah, you can get a 50-hour work weekend that's literally all work. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, aside from that, I'm watching movies. Like I've been through all my favorite TV series more times than I can count. Like I literally can't count the number of times I've been through Bob's Burgers. Like I've lost track. Same with King of the Hill,
Yep.
30 Rock, Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've seen these all so many times, and like it used to be those were my comfort shows, and that's where I would go when I just wanted something that I knew I liked, I didn't have to search around for, and I could just binge my way through. but I've done it all so many times, so I've started, like, seeking out movies, and I watched a lot of good movies, and I'm still finding good movies, but lately, I've just been watching whatever Hulu tells me I should, or Netflix, and, um, like, last night I watched, Rough Night with Scarlett Johansson
Mhm.
and,
Ilana Glazer and Paul
yeah,
Downs. Yeah, yeah, I saw that in the
yeah.
theater, and, yeah.
Well, and I realized I had actually seen it before and I finished it anyway, and it's not what I would call a great movie.
No.
What's her name playing the Australian? She's from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah,
She's
yeah, yeah,
always
yeah,
in
yeah.
she was in Ghostbusters. I always forget her name, but
Yeah, Kate McKinnon.
Kate McKinnon, yes. Her Australian character in that is kind of not dead on for an Australian because I don't know that many Australians, but dead on for like the new age hippie
Yeah.
type without being like over. She's not like spacey and crazy. She just has like all these like, oh, I can communicate with animals. Let me handle this violent dog. Um, It was okay. Like, it was that's the thing is, like, even with a bad movie, I can enjoy it. I
Yeah.
watched Nona's on Hulu with, Vince Vaughn. It was about he opens an Italian restaurant and staffs it with actual Italian grandmothers, AKA Nonas, and like, makes a go of the restaurant scene with no previous restaurant experience, and it it was it was heartwarming and touching, and I actually am gonna watch it again with Elle, even though on its face, not actually what I would consider, like, a movie for the ages in any way.
Mhm.
But I'm stuck. I've gone through like, my friend Chris has a Plex, and, it has probably 1,000 movies on it. And I've gone through and tried to find everything that I would actually wanna watch. I think my next phase is to get back into horror because, like, horror as a genre, I always I always look away from because I think I don't really need to be scared. That's not my goal in life. I don't need additional fear of the world is bad enough. But a good horror movie is actually like a statement about the monsters within us and the
Mhm.
monsters around us, and it doesn't matter what the actual monster in the movie is. It's like a way of like just like sci-fi takes like a social ill and projects it onto maybe an alien race that you don't have any preconceived like prejudices towards, and they make it something that you can be like, "Oh yeah, I can see how that's wrong." Star Trek, for example.
Mhm.
Like, sci-fi is really good at that. Horror can be the same way,
Totally.
and horror can make you look at actual things within yourself and within society in ways that make it easier to understand, to grok in ways that your, like, personal prejudices blind you to. So, I can appreciate good horror. I just don't know how to tell the difference between what's gonna be just, a thriller, like, just something that makes me pee my pants and doesn't offer anything else, and those really touching horror movies that finish and you feel like a better person for having watched it. I don't know how to find those.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, this is the hard thing. I feel like think services like Letterboxd, I feel like are good for this, and I feel like, potentially to, like, figure out, like reading kind of ratings, reviews, but yeah, but unfortunately, sometimes, yeah, you just have to, like, kind of watch and then kind of figure out, "Okay, is this good or not?" And, like, make the determination while you're watching it, like, "Do I
I
wanna
do
continue
th
or not?"
Yeah, I do think you can tell in the first 15
I
minutes.
honestly, I feel like you can't. I feel like, this is an area where, like, and I'm usually a fan of, like, trying to watch the whole movie. Horror is actually weirdly one of those genres where I'm not. Like, I'm kind of like, I will give it, like, a solid like 15, 20. And then if
Yeah.
I'm not into it, I'm peacing out, right?
Yeah.
Because it was one thing like when I was younger and like you only had what was on Blockbuster and what was airing,
Right.
on HBO or Cinemax or whatever. And Cinemax would air some terrible shit. And I saw so many bad movies that way. Or, like if you bought, DVDs like I did, and a lot of times I would just there was this forum called DVD Talk, might still exist, but I doubt it, that would basically they would review DVDs, they would track DVD deals, and like the forums there were great. And like because it was like the .com era where companies were selling stuff for less than they should have, high school me would get like $100 worth of DVDs like every week that
Yeah.
were probably, $400 retail, right? But I would
Yeah.
just get like all these DVDs. And then I worked at Best Buy. So I got things like, basically at
Uh-huh.
cost. So I had like a really like a good source of like basically I'd hear recommendations from people. They'd be like, oh, this is a great movie. And then sometimes I'd be like, this was dog shit. But sometimes it'd be okay. But I feel like horror is one of those things where like, especially now that we have access to so many things, like it used to be one of those things. This was the point of my story, my anecdote, is that you would have to watch the whole thing, because you didn't have a lot of other options. You're like, okay, I might as well just finish this. But now you can pretty much tell like the first 15, 20, is this going to get any better or not?
Yeah.
Has this
Right. Totally.
has this sucked me in or not? And if the answer is no, then like and there might be exceptions where like people tell you after the fact, okay, no, go back, give it another shot. It really takes, the
Well, because
first
it's about
whatever.
quality. And you can tell even before like 15 minutes, maybe like the main plot line hasn't even
Yeah.
evolved yet.
But
Maybe it
if the
like you're
acting is
still
good,
in
yes.
complete expo yeah, exactly. If the acting is good, if the writing is good, if the editing is
Mhm.
good. And you can tell that in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe you have this thing that you can relate to where you prefer no, this is me. I'm talking about me now. So I prefer to watch a movie at least halfway through before I bring my partner in on it because starting a movie cold where neither of us have seen it leads to such uncomfortable moments of like, "Hey, are you enjoying this? Are you still
Mhm.
okay with this? Do you think this is good? Should we quit? Should we watch something else?" And like I spent so much time worrying, and Elle does it too. I know they
Right.
do. Like they worry about what I think, I worry about what they think, and it's so much easier for me to just take a half hour, watch the first 30 minutes of a movie I think we might like and like get through so that we can go into it at least saying, I think this is good and not have to like base my opinions off of how I feel someone else feels. Do you have that
Yeah.
at all with Grant?
Not really. I mean, usually I kind of have an idea like if we're gonna like it or not, right? Like you kind of tell like who's the director, who's the whatever. Does the idea seem okay? Um, but I feel like um so that's part of it. But like I feel like what was I gonna say? Sometimes you just don't know, and so that like, anytime you go see a movie in the theater, right, like, that is the exact same experience you're describing, and then you're trapped, you're stuck. You've gotta actually, like unless
Sure.
it's so bad that somebody needs to walk out, which, there have been, like, like, such a small number of movies that have been that bad
Yep.
that, like, I've
Yep.
actually walked out of the theater. Because at that point, it almost is like, "Okay, well, now I just need to see how awful this is just to get through
Right.
it," right? But the
So
thing
I can
is,
complain about it later. Yeah.
Grant really enjoys watching truly terrible movies, and so we don't watch a lot of the same things because he really, really likes to watch, like, stuff that, like, like the, can't think their name, but the people who were part of, Mystery Science Theater 3000, and they started their
Mhm.
own, thing where they do, like, commentary over really bad movies and, like but he's really, really into watching just bad movies, like, on purpose, and I can respect that, but that's just not really, like, my thing at this stage in my life. Like, there was a time when I was maybe more into that, like, for the again, like, in college, like, for the lulz, but, like, that's just not a thing that I actively seek out now. So, if it's really bad or if the commentary track, is really funny, then maybe I'll give it a shot, but, like, in general, I'm not gonna I would rather spend 90 minutes not watching dog shit. Um, but he gets enjoyment out of it. He enjoys the humor of how bad those things can be, and so I appreciate that. But so I don't know. I feel like um we have like I don't know. I feel like I'm not as I don't have that concern, but I understand why you do, right? And I understand like if that can take you out of it, like if you're not sure of rip tracks is what I was trying to think of. But like I can understand like if you're worried about how somebody else is going to react and whatnot, and that would be the case. Um, my recency stuff, like in terms of the last 10 years, is not as strong, but I'm fortunate that I have such like a long backlog of like things that I've seen that like I usually have like a pretty good sense of being like, okay, will you like this? Will you
Well,
not?
and you remember
Yeah.
like directors, you remember actors, you
Yep.
remember you remember the extended credits
Yeah.
on movies, and I don't.
No,
Like
which
for
is totally
me,
true.
like
Most
I'll
people don't.
totally see a director's name and not remember whether or not I hated their previous work or not. And that would be a boon to be able to remember that stuff. But thankfully, Letterbox and services like that can help fill in my memory, I guess.
Mhm.
Is Mystery Science Theater streaming anywhere?
That I don't know,
I might
actually.
have to dig those up. I might have to do some
Yeah, that would
torrent
be a good one
searches.
to watch. I mean, I know that I think that they might be on, like, their own network, or something. But again, like, I know, like, Riff Tracks, and they might have bought, like, the rights to them. But, I know they have, like, some sort of, like, subscription service or something. Um
Me and my high school friends used to love that was like me and the nerds, we loved Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah,
That
no, a lot of
was
people did. Yeah, so they have like a $5.99 subscription thing which has like hundreds of Riff Tracks movies and shorts and stuff. And I don't know if that has the Mystery Science Theater 3000 stuff or not, but I'm sure that those are available like
yeah.
places. I
Yeah. I'd like to figure that. Have you ever watched Evil Dead, any of the Evil Dead
I have.
movies?
I have.
I like it keeps coming up in my mind that I want to go back and watch these again. I haven't seen them since like the 90s. And I keep finding myself like wanting to, but not really in the mood for it. I think I need to just get started on like the first Evil Dead, and maybe then I'll be able to get back into it because I know I would love it. I know it's so campy and so just like over the top that I feel like it would be a fun evening. I just can't get myself to do it. All right.
All right.
Well,
So just as an update, there are some classic episodes of MST3K that are on Pluto and some of the other fast
what is
services.
Pluto?
Pluto TV, it's the one that Paramount owns, I think.
Okay.
Um, and so it's one of those so they have, like, a Riff Tracks channel, and they have a Mystery Science Theater 3000 channel and, some other stuff, so you can watch things that way, but, there was a Kickstarter, I guess, 4 years ago, the MST3K people did called, I guess to make, like, a season 14 of that, and so they have their own platform that has all the every available classic episode. Now, what that entails, I don't know. So there's 150 of them. So they have their own, I guess,
Okay.
platform, Gizmoplex.
Gizmo Flex. Let
Hmm.
me add that to the all one word,
Yeah,
Gizmoplex.
Gizmoplex. Yep.
All right. All right. Should we do some gratitude?
Yeah, let's do some gratitude.
What do you have what do you have on your list?
Okay, so the one that I have on my list, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, and if I did, then I feel really, really bad. I think about we've talked about Sindra Sorhus stuff before, who is great, who does a lot of open source apps and also makes apps available for across the Apple platforms, and some of them I think are on other things too, and most of them are open source. Some of them are paid for, but he has a really great app called Actions, which is basically like a shortcuts app, to basically do additional things in the shortcuts app, which is really, really great. It's available on macOS, iOS, iPadOS. And it's as far as I know, it's free. There are a couple of those, types of shortcut kind of add-on things which cost money, but Actions is free, and it's a really great way to like, as he says, like supercharge your shortcuts with powerful actions and features and whatnot. Well, he has an add-on with that, I guess kind of sorts called AI Actions, which is like AI actions for the Shortcuts app. And so, you can have it using related actions using various models like, GPT 4.0, or Mini, Claude 3.5, Haiku and whatnot directly from the Shortcuts app.
Yeah.
And then on the Mac, you can also support other models using things like Olama and whatnot. And so it's a pretty good app, and I enjoy it. I haven't played around with the newest version of Mac OS yet. I'm not going to until things stabilize more, because um I think that some of the stuff like doesn't work well in a VM, and I'm just not in a place where my personal machine, I want to put a beta on it. I don't have any reason to. My work machine, I'm definitely not. And then, I have an Intel iMac, which I could, but like most of the stuff that's going to be new is, I mean, this is the last year that they're going to be supporting that this particular iMac anyway. RIP. I guess I'll have to put like Linux on it or something, or Windows or whatever once it's end of life. But because it's still a viable machine actually. But anyways, that stuff wouldn't be necessarily best optimized on it. So I haven't played around with what some of the new AI stuff like built into the Mac OS is, but I can't comment for how good like Apple's on-device model has become. My skeptical opinion is going to be that it's still probably pretty dog shit compared to Gemma 3N and
Yeah.
Llama,
Yep.
and let alone like the mainstream frontier models like Gemini, Claude, and OpenAI. So like I'm glad that they're doing stuff, but I'm not really holding my breath to be like, oh yeah, this will be so good, and the on-device stuff will be just as good as anything else. Like, fuck off. Like I don't believe that. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong, but they lied to us for a year, and I don't think they deserve any credibility in this space right now. Like, I'm not giving it to them anyway. If other people want to, that's fine, but like I'm certainly not. So I do like the idea of being able to use like AI stuff in your shortcuts in a way that isn't reliant on, whatever Apple has decided to
Yeah.
offer to people.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Side note, I will eventually break down and make my node a gratitude pick, but my node just introduced a whole bunch of new shortcut actions,
Nice.
and that's awesome. And I feel like as reluctant as I've been getting into shortcuts in general, I think it's easier for developers to add shortcut actions these days than it is to add automator actions. And why
Yeah.
would you at this point? But
No, exactly. Which is unfortunate, because I mean, I think that we can all agree that like Automator is still a lot more powerful, especially, I mean, obviously on Mac, that's the only place it is, but it's a lot more powerful, and it's just it's better, more robust, but they haven't given that any love. They're not going to give it any love. It's kind of a end of life sort of thing. Or
so
not, I wouldn't say end of life. They're not going to call it, but like keep the lights on.
so I only caught the last half of the keynote. But from what I saw, all of Apple's announcements regarding iOS and iPadOS were about making iOS more Mac-like, which is
Well,
a
iPad OS, yeah.
reverse, which is a
Yes.
reverse from making macOS more iPad-like,
Mm-hmm.
which seems like it's been the trend.
Yep.
Are we just equalizing? Is that what's happening? What's going on there?
I don't know. So, I mean, if that's a good question. Right now, I personally think that by making the decisions that they are making with iPadOS, which I have not installed yet, but I probably will, like maybe in July, I'm probably going to put like the public betas on. I don't know if I'll go to the dev betas, but I might do the public betas. Might be like a week behind. because that does look like it is a genuine, like, big upgrade, right? Like, they're getting rid of slide over. Thank fuck, rest in piss. Like, slide over is an abomination and never needed to exist. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Um, they're getting rid of that, and they're getting rid of, like, I guess, like, the traditional split panel thing, but they are allowing you to basically window apps and move them
Yeah.
around. And so it is windowing. I think as John Gruber like pointed out, right? Like, it's not really multitasking, it's windowing in like the traditional Mac sense, which I think is awesome, right? And so and honestly, they're keeping Stage Manager around, which sucks, but like I can almost even get down with Stage Manager if it's gonna work the way I would never use it on a Mac, but the way I would use it on like an
Yeah.
iPad. They're including like a better kind of like file kind of, app. Like they're making improvements. But then to your point, they've spent the last decade plus, close to 15 years making the Mac more and more iPad-like. So just give us a fucking touchscreen Mac at this point.
Right.
Like, honestly, just give us a fucking touchscreen Mac. And if you don't believe in the iPad enough, that you don't think that it can survive having a touchscreen, capabilities. I'm not even saying be able to write on the screen. I'm not even going that far, right? But like, admit you were wrong and the service actually made sense, right? Like, because clearly you were wrong and the service made sense if what you're doing is to your point, kind of equaling out the halves, right? And kind of
Yeah.
bringing them slowly with parity with one another, except one of them is still going to be shittier than the other because it can't run, like on sandbox stuff and it has more limitations. But also in some ways, one of them is going to be better than the other because it has those limitations. And so you don't have to worry about stuff. And if you
Yeah.
just want something to work and to last forever, you can do that, right? Like, I think that, the problem they have with the iPad is that most people don't need to buy an iPad more than every 5 years.
Right.
And that's just gonna be a reality, right? Like, they try to make it out to go, "Oh, make this your, what's a computer?" Which was the dumbest fucking ad in the world. And they're never gonna not be made fun of for that 'cause you know, even they admitted themselves, like, they were wrong, right? It's like, okay, no, would Apple rather you buy, like, an iPad Air with, like, the keyboard and all that stuff or a MacBook? I bet they make more margin on the MacBook. I bet they make more margin on the MacBook Air, honestly.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think they really care. It's one of those things, like, yeah, they make more revenue from the App Store, but, like, that's because you fucked up on macOS App Store. That's, like, not like, that's a you problem if you
Yeah.
don't make enough revenue from that, honestly. But, like, I don't know. I just feel like, I'm glad to see them making those changes. But, yeah, it does feel kind of like whiplash. It's like, "Okay, well, you told us for this long that these platforms have to be separate, but now we're making them closer and closer together, but just enough differences so you choose one over the other." And it's like, I don't know, maybe just accept that people are never going to use the iPad as a primary computing device. And I look forward to all the feedback that people will now come and tell me, "Well, no, I've been using my iPad as my primary computing device and only computing device for blah, blah, blah amount of time."
I've
Congratulations.
heard from
I'm really
so
happy for
many
you.
people. I've heard from so many like YouTube creators that really tried
Oh, yeah.
to go down that path and
Yeah.
have said, fuck it.
No.
The
Yes.
Mac Mini, the M4 Mac Mini is way better than trying to use an iPad for about the same price, just a
Yes.
better computing experience.
Yeah, Federico did an interview with Craig Federighi and talked about, was able to talk about some of this stuff. And so I'll put a thing for that in the show notes too if people want to read his interview for Mac Stories. Uh,
Yeah, I would like to read that. I hadn't seen that, but so like Federico really went all in
yeah,
on iPad as computing device. So I'd be really curious to.
yeah, totally. And then kind of had to kind of make a push back, right? Because at a certain point, like it stopped working, and like I'm not gonna judge anybody who like made that their goal. Like I'm gonna go all in on this. Like, I mean, I think that's like a worthy pursuit, I suppose. Um, I guess that I'm too pragmatic in these senses, and then I'm like, that would be a fun challenge to do, but I'm not gonna disrupt my workflow to try to make a paradigm work when the paradigm clearly doesn't work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like like, which is the only way I would sometimes kind of, like, be a little bit weird about people who'd be like, "Oh, no, I do all my computing on my iPad, and that's my entire personality." I'm like, "Cool. I appreciate that, and, like, I'm happy for you to do these things." But at a certain point, if you're having to make all these workarounds and having to make all of these, like having to have all these contingencies, are you not just I feel the same way about people who, like, insist on, like, using, like, a Linux phone or, like, super
Sure.
into, like, Linux on the desktop things. I'm like, "Okay, I mean, more power to you. I'm happy for you to do this." But, like, at a certain point for me anyway, if I have other options, and granted, not everybody does, but most people who do these things do. If I have other options, why am I continuing to, like, you know, basically punish myself because I'm insistent on using this, this workflow, this system that this company has sold me, but doesn't actually
Mhm.
exist. And we all know it doesn't actually exist. And we all know that there are trade-offs, right? Like, I think if you can do all those things, you don't have to take an extra device. That's great. I think that for Apple, if I'm being honest, like, and I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm rambling here, but I haven't talked about this sort of stuff in a while. I think that they had to make there were a lot of concessions and a lot of, frankly, now we can look back with the, power of like a decade, where there were a lot of like marketing decisions, and messaging that was really kind of a cope, and that was really about the fact that Intel's chips were not good enough and were not able to deliver what they wanted. And so they had to, and yet they weren't willing, and maybe at the time weren't able to, do things to iPadOS to make it actually Mac-like. And so they were kind of at this like precipice. They were like, okay, we have to create these differentiators, and we have to like sell this mission that, oh no, you can have, this iPad device, and this can be your computer, and you can do all these things that's so powerful. Maybe as kind of a hedge to be like, okay, well, if we can't get our desktop chips done in this time, if we can't do the software transition, then we have this as kind of a backup way where people can do stuff. But I think, like, as soon as the M1 series came out, 5 years ago, as soon as those chips came out and they were so good that it and then, the software transition happened, relatively quickly, that it kind of became for a lot of people like, "Okay, we don't have to pretend anymore that we have, that these powerful devices that have good battery life and low heat that cripple
Right.
software, but whatever. We don't have to pretend to make that trade-off. We can actually just use the computer that we always wanted, which is going to be, for most people, I think, a MacBook Air. I mean, you and I both have MacBook Pros, and like a Mac Mini is honestly great too for a desktop. But like, I think for most people, like a MacBook Air, which is totally silent and very powerful and does everything you need it to do, especially now that it comes with 16 gigs of RAM. It's like this is the machine that you can literally, it's not much more than an iPad, with a keyboard and whatnot, and you're gonna be able to do way more on it. The only thing that you can't, obviously, is have a touchscreen, which would be nice. But, you know, then
Yeah.
I just feel like we all could kind of give up on, like, that, like, collective, like, delusional cope of being like, "Oh, no. We the iPad can be perfect for everything." I am glad, though, that if they're not gonna give us macOS on an iPad, I am glad that they're at least finally, giving you a proper windowing system and doing, things like that, because it's been sorely, sorely needed. And, I'm
I
yeah.
I bought an iPad Pro like 5 years ago,
Mhm.
with the hopes that not that it would replace my desktop, but that I would be able to do more
Right.
computing on it. And that honestly, it just was not the case.
No.
I do not find the iPad to be a viable computing platform, not for the kind of work I do.
No, no, no. For the stuff that you and I do, like, I think for a lot of people, like, if you're just doing, kind of like stuff in Google Docs, especially now with the windowing mode, if you're doing things,
Sure.
you know,
If you're
uh,
just writing, if you're
right.
writing, sure. Even
Yeah.
then though, multitasking and this is about to get better,
Yes.
but even with like if you're writing for tech especially, you need multiple apps, multiple
Yes.
windows. You need copy paste
Yes.
between all kinds of applications
Mhm.
and like the iPad just it doesn't fit that
No, it
bill. Like
doesn't.
it's not
Well, no, it
the
doesn't.
paradigm is all wrong for that.
Yeah, where it was better for me, because 'cause I've had an iPad Pro now, basically since the very first one, which I think was, like, the 9.7, and then I got, like, the first 11-inch one, the one in 2018, and then I replaced that one with the, I think it's the M3, it might be the M2, whatever, the one that came out in 2022 or 2023, and I think it was 2023, and so I've had that for a couple of years now. I didn't get the one that came out last year the M4 one or whatever. I thought about it, but it was just going to be for the minor upgrade. It just wasn't going to happen. But where it did become useful for me was during the pandemic. And again, this was all about Intel, really, not so much anything else. In that Zoom and Teams, like on my Mac, were Teams especially was terrible. And so, I'm now doing like video meetings all day long, and like, you know, again, like Teams on Mac at the time was like a nightmare because they hadn't prioritized that at all. And so I was like, okay, well, I will have my laptop up and I can be doing things, and I will literally have like my iPad as like my, video
Mhm.
conferencing thing, right? Like that was what I was using things for. And that was really good. And the battery life was better and the performance was better. And like even with the bullshit multitasking that existed in 2020, which was worse than it is now, and now is worse than it will be in a few months, it was still a superior experience to using some of those applications, right? But that's just, 5 years later, like, that's not the case anymore. So, yeah, like, I feel like if you were in a there are times when, like, you can get a lot done, and I'm not opposed to saying buy an iPad, but I also feel like it's one of those things where people are like, "Oh, it can be my everything machine," and I'm like, again, like,
No.
unless you really have.
No, and the Surface could be.
Yes. Yes, the Surface really
Yeah,
could be because they actually kind of nailed it, right? Like, they actually
yeah,
did sort of nail it and go, "No, having this convertible package and having this ability to write on, but also do the real computing and plug it in with a dock and do all that stuff, it fucking
yeah,
works." It's good. Like, Windows is not, but, like, the
yeah, sure.
device itself is, and if you can make,
Yeah,
if you can make your I could be far more productive, like, on a Surface. Is it gonna be as good in every way as an iPad? No, but it's a much better
mm,
middle ground than having 2 different devices. But I just feel
yeah,
like once the MacBook Air got good, it was like, okay, if you really didn't need that portable thing and it's not about, like, if you're gonna have a keyboard with your iPad anyway, in my
right,
opinion, you might as well just have a
exactly.
MacBook Air. Like,
Yep.
right? Like,
Because
it yeah.
using a MacBook or using an iPad with a keyboard, it's it's even so, okay, I like to make everything as keyboard centric as
Yep.
possible, but the fact is on a Mac, every once in a while, I still have to reach over and use my trackpad.
Right.
When you have to go from using your keyboard to reaching up to touch your screen,
Yeah.
I find that way more problematic than just moving my hand a little bit to the right, or
Yeah,
in
I
the
would agree with
case of
that.
a MacBook Pro to like lower center to
Yeah,
use a trackpad. I find the combination of keyboard and touch to be
that's the
just
worst.
unworkable for me.
Yeah, no,
I don't like it at all.
yeah, when I use my, like, Magic Keyboard or whatever with my iPad Pro, and this is also another reason why I haven't upgraded because I'd have to replace that keyboard and I'd have to replace the pencil and, like, that's
Yeah, I
expensive,
know.
right? So, like, okay, great, I'm gonna just add $450 or whatever to my already expensive, but, like, okay. But, like, the fact that you can use a mouse or the trackpad that's built into the Magic Keyboard, when I do use my iPad with a keyboard, I'm not touching it. Like, this is
Yeah.
the irony. They've the Mac has, like, so, like, you know, anti-touchscreen pilled me to the point that, like, if I'm on, like, something that even looks like
Yeah,
a Mac, I just forget that I can even touch stuff, right? Because,
yeah,
like, that's how, like, locked in I've become on that.
yeah,
But also to your point, I think that it is the worst of both. It's nice, I think, to have it there, right? Like, because it can be useful, like, when I used to use a Surface Book, which had a great trackpad, like a Mac quality trackpad and had a good keyboard, and this was the one that was, like, a little more than the Surface. This was had, like, the hard bottom that had, like, the GPU core in it and had, like, you could detach the screen and use that as whatnot, but it had a good touchscreen, and I didn't use it that much. Well, where I would use it would be like, okay, I'm working on something and I wanna scroll, and sometimes it would just frankly be easier to scroll with my fingers
sure.
to go,
Yeah,
up and down than to use a trackpad, even a really good
yeah.
trackpad. Like, honestly, that like, I could just go, or we needed to zoom in on something, right? Like, that was, like, perfect use cases, like, just pinch and zoom, and rather than
Well,
having to
it's
do,
like,
like, command plus.
so while the leap motion was a thing, like,
Yeah.
I got really used to scrolling by just picking up my
Yeah.
fingers and waving them in front of my screen, and that's kind of the same
Absolutely.
it's the same
It's
motion
the exact same
if
thing.
your screen were closer
I
and you
mean,
were
you I
just
mean,
touching the
it
screen.
it's funny, you were Vision Proing before the Vision Pro existed, is what you were doing.
Yep, and I'm still not vision proing, but
Well, no,
Okay.
no one's Vision Pro. Anyway, but that I rambled enough. Let's go to your pick.
Yeah. So I am certain I've talked about this before, but there's an app for Mac called RegXRX, as in like Regex Pharmacy.
Mhm.
And
Great app.
there are many regular expression testing applications out there, and none of them have ever come close to Regex RX for me. And I got really bummed because it would not run on my M1 Studio. It would just immediately crash. And I contacted the developer and they were not super responsive, but eventually they said, well, it works on our machine. So whatever. And never got it working. But then I got my M4 MacBook Pro and suddenly it worked again. And I am back to having Regex RX available. And what I love about it, in addition, so it'll tell you immediately if your regex is invalid, if you have an unfinished like character sequence or a bad escape or missing parentheses, it'll give you that information in real time. It'll show you all of your matches, and each match has a drop down menu where you can see the matched groups within the regular expression and what in your test pattern match them. And it can copy and paste in multiple languages. So if I'm working in Ruby, I can say, all right, I want to copy this either search pattern or the entire code to do a search and replace with this pattern to Ruby. Or it can paste, I can copy a sequence I'm working on in Objective-C, and I can paste it from Objective-C, and it'll remove all the double backslashes. It'll remove the at quote from the string definition, and it will paste a standard POSIX regular expression.
Mhm.
And then I can copy it out as Objective-C, and it'll replace all of that with Objective-C syntax. And it doesn't have a Swift capability, but Swift is far more standard in string handling than Objective-C is. So you can actually use like the Ruby export to work with Swift.
Okay.
And it is just, it's for what I do, it is hands down the best regular expression tester program I've ever found.
And is this the one that's like that's $4.99 in the Mac App Store?
That sounds right, yes. It
Okay.
has, like, a pill bottle
Yeah,
for
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
icon.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
reason I was asking is so it's $5, which is great because I was looking about getting this um and I'll go ahead and buy it. But fuck it. But we'll give it a shot. I am a little not happy with like their initial kind of support response to you about well works for
Yeah,
us, whatever. And it hasn't been updated in 5 years, which is
yeah,
also not great.
yeah.
But I love a good, regex tester. I use AI for that at this point for a lot of
Do you?
things. Yeah, yeah,
Does it work well?
it does. It honestly works
Alright.
incredibly well.
I should give that a shot.
You should,
Because you're
but
right, it's not well maintained, and it may never be updated again. And it's living on borrowed time, but for now, like, there's just nothing that can replace it. Like, my next best option is expressions,
I was
but
gonna say expressions is good.
it doesn't have nearly the capabilities that Regex RX has. It's
Yeah,
so good.
that was gonna be my second question was how is this different from expressions, which we've talked about before and which I really like because it's a really great visual way to do things, which I think is
Yeah.
probably what would
It's
be better than this, right? But it seems like this is really good for testing.
yeah, but like Regex RX will highlight all your square bracket and parentheses pairs
Mhm.
in different colors for each nested pair. So visually, it's not as pretty, but it has all the same visual feedback as expressions, and it just has so many more additional features on top of that. The
Nice.
the copy from and paste to are definitely my top tier requests. Um, but then it lets you can specify every possible flag that you can use in a regular expression. Like, oh, you're greedy and your line end is line begin is string begin kind of flags. You can specify all those with a quick drop down, and expressions just feels almost crippled compared to Regex RX. It's a good app. No shade to
No, I
expressions.
totally get that. You're just saying like that the way that this works for you is better, and I think that's like completely valid. Um, yeah, I was just that was just one of my questions because I think I think you've maybe even mentioned this app to me before.
Yeah,
And I spent $5 on it because support people, $5, who cares? That's a small enough, price to pay. It might be useful, especially based on everything you're saying. And I don't use regular expressions nearly as much as you do, but it's nice to know that there are things like that out there and that it works on your M4 at least. So, I,
I
I, I, I
spent I spent the last 3 days refining critic markup handling in Marked and doing it all in Objective-C and figuring out all the regular expressions and in what order the regular expressions had to happen to get solid critic markup rendering with comments and with insertion, deletion, substitution handling. And I will publish this library,
yes,
this critic markup, because critic markup, the GitHub repository currently doesn't have an Objective-C or Swift implementation of
interesting.
critic markup. And I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna share this library. I'll make it open source. But anyway, Regex RX has come in really handy for that.
No, that would be like the thing that would be really good. And since
And I will say, like, I tried using AI to fix these regular expressions, and it messed it up. So I ended up back in Regex RX doing it myself. So I did try AI for
yeah,
this.
no, which would honestly, which makes sense. I mean, that it wouldn't because where some of the stuff is weakest is gonna be like it's okay-ish on Swift, but like Objective-C stuff, there's not a lot of corpus for it to like learn from. And I would
Yeah.
think with critic markup there would be even less, right? So
Yeah.
like, maybe you can, you could throw
Claude did have a good Claude knew all of the not all of the critic markup syntax.
Mhm,
As soon as I said critic markup, it's like, okay, here are your basic.
right,
But then it started adding syntax that
right,
doesn't exist
right. Yeah, start
in critic
hallucinating.
markup.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's
total
the thing,
hallucination.
completely, and, like and not that you should because, again, if you can do it with a different tool, that's what you should do. I'm just trying to kind of think through, like, in the short term, like, how people, if they face these things, could get through it if they didn't have other tools. There would be things where you could maybe, like, in, like, your prompt, like, your system prompt, you could be like, "Never, create new things," right? Like, only use documentation from, this file. Only
Yeah.
use, these rules or whatever. But and that might get you closer, but it might still create things, right? Which to your point is what happens. And like it is good that Claude immediately was able to be like, this is what you're doing, but it's not good when it's like, oh no, but look at all these features, and you're like, this does not exist. Um,
This morning I was trying to get a parser to convert pandoc metadata into multi-markdown metadata.
mhm,
And I copied literally the pandoc documentation for how pandoc metadata works. And I pasted it into Cursor
yep,
and I said, because it seems so simple, I'm like, why waste my time? I'll just let Cursor do this.
right,
And I gave it the exact documentation and it still messed it up. And I still had to be like, no, look at line 124 here. Clearly, if you skip a line,
mhm.
then it means that metadata is blank, not that it's a blank line. And yeah, it was very frustrating. AI only gets you so far.
It's true. It's true. I mean, it's getting better all the time, but although it only gets you so far, but then I also have the secondary question, which is like, we are now almost, like asking it to do things like we wouldn't have asked a year ago, right? Like a year ago, you wouldn't have even thought to be like, oh, hey, let me paste all this documentation to you and have you do this for me. And
Yeah.
even think, oh, it can do it for me, right? Like, we wouldn't even a year ago, we were barely at that point, like, the agentic coding systems were, like, just starting to show up, and now we're like, "Well, fuck you, you can't do it correctly." You know, I'll start my own club, you know, with
No, that's fair.
with hookers and cocaine. But, like, no, but, I mean, I think we'll get better, but you're not wrong. Like, there are all these edge cases, and it's just funny that we're finding the edge cases, I think, just because we're starting to use these tools for, like, more than what we used them for before. Like, at least that's my
Yeah.
my take is that,
No,
like,
that's fair.
is that we've started to adopt these things more quickly than I think even, like, the skeptics might have, like, wanted to believe. And it's like, no, like, you know, they're still skeptics, of course, but, like, but I think people who use them, you're like, "Okay, you know, I have this one positive experience. I'm gonna continue trying things, and then when I don't, that's when I'll use other tools." But yeah, I mean, we shouldn't use it for everything. Anyway, continuing to ramble, but
Should we wrap here?
yeah, we should wrap.
All right. Well, thank you, Christina,
Thank you,
for
Brett.
showing up when Jeff couldn't.
Well,
Thank you for
Jeff,
not having a jet ski.
I know, I know. I'm regretting that I don't have a jet ski, but glad that Jeff does.
All right. Well, get some sleep.
Get some sleep.
The system is going down now.